made me laugh this morning, and it relates to something that a lot of people would like for the Lord to do, because they're individuals who have been waiting on the Lord to fulfill a promise, and He may be taking a very long time in fulfilling that promise. And you're like, it would be nice if it was like a shipping company that gives you a tracking number, and you can see exactly where the product is with the estimated time of arrival, and how that make your life so much easier. Well, recently, I ordered some products from a company, and they gave me tracking information regarding when the products were ordered and the most likely arrival date. And lo and behold, the arrival date that they gave me was actually too late. I would need it sooner, but I think it was an overestimation on their part, and it was. And there were several different products, and they sent the first product to me, and those two items could have actually been the last. But finally, the bulk of the shipment started coming in, and they'd give me a date of September 15th for all the items. So the first item came in way before September 15th, because today is July 25th or 26th. So in a sense, it was a good sign. I had an estimation regarding how long it would take from the time they completed their process and shipped it before it would get to me. So with the bulk of the items coming in, initially that September 15th date applied to them. And I'm tracking, and it just said order placed. And then it was updated to order being processed, then order complete, then order shipped. And the shipping company, they gave me tracking information. And initially, they said the products would be here on Wednesday. That'd be on time. So I've been tracking ever so often, maybe once or twice per day, to see if there are any updates. And I still have another item or some items that the company still had not finished processing. So I'm tracking all these different things. So it's good news. Most of the items would come in on Wednesday. But then the shipping company, they gave me an update, and they said the items would be here today between 2 and 6 p.m. Hey, great news. And I was on the phone earlier, and then it's like I just happened to check my email, and the shipping company gave me an update. And guess what they said? They said the product had been delivered. So when I checked, there they were, delivered, and they were delivered ahead of time. But even before I went to physically reclaim the items, this is when the Lord made me laugh. Because when I saw the email that the items had been delivered and delivered ahead of time, that's when the Lord said to me, "You cannot track me." So for those who are waiting on the Lord for something, and you'd love for Him to give you a tracking code so you could track that item, ultimately you will not be able to track God, because He will surprise you. And for those who want to be self-righteous and is saying, what kind of man is saying that God said something to him and he had the nerve to laugh? Shouldn't be on his face falling for a holy God? Well, that is a testament of your relationship with the Lord as opposed to mine. Because in Genesis 17, when the Lord told Abraham that He was going to bless him with a son, Abraham laughed. Now, a lot of times we think about what happened with Sarah, about her laughing, but Abraham laughed. And he said, "Shall a man 100 years old have a son, and his wife Sarah, 99, give birth to a child?" So Abraham laughed. And that was a part of Abraham's relationship with the Lord. Now, it took 25 years for the Lord to finally bless Abraham and Sarah with the promised child. And in a sense, He didn't give them a tracking number, but throughout the years, there were signs that a promise was coming. Such as in Genesis 13, Genesis 15, and I think 14 also, where the Lord told Abraham, "Look up in the sky if you can count the stars, so shall the number of your offspring be. Look down at the dust, if you can count the specks, so shall the number of your offspring be." And in Genesis 15, when Abraham was complaining that he didn't have an offspring, and that his servant would inherit his household, the Lord told him that would not be so, and that he'd have a son from his own loins. And even after the mistake in Genesis 16, where Abraham listened to Sarah and conceived a child with Hagar, a son named Ishmael, the Lord still came a little bit later in Genesis 17 to let Abraham know that despite what had happened, that his word would still, he would still complete his words. And that's also a testament of God, where sometimes we can misinterpret what the Lord says to us. And even though we misinterpret what the Lord says to us and sometimes try to help him to bring his words to pass, that his words are not only what he says, but also the intents of his heart. So even though Abraham had a son, and it was from his own loins, and the son's name was Ishmael, it was not the promised child, and it didn't negate the promise the Lord had intended. Not only the words from his mouth, but the intents of God's heart. But not a lot of information there. So throughout the years, Abraham would receive signs that the promise was coming. And when the Lord told him that by the following year he would have that son with his wife, Sarah, give him more specifics. And there are times with the Lord, he'll give you a promise and he will not be very clear about it. But as it comes closer to its fulfillment, he will give you more clarity. And it's been said that there is a cost to clarity. Because if the Lord tells you that, for example, you're supposed to marry Jill, don't go after Jane. If the Lord says you're going to marry Jack, don't go after Jeffrey. So the Lord was going to fulfill his promise. And when he told him that by the following year he was going to have a son, the Lord confirmed it in three ways. One, when the Lord told Abraham that he was going to have a child with Sarah the following year. Two, in Genesis 18, when the Lord said it again and Sarah overheard it and she laughed. And the third time when the Lord confirmed it was when Sarah actually got pregnant and they could see the fruit coming to fruition. And even though they could guess when they copulated and when the child would be born and try to plan it down to the day, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the time the Lord was going to bring it to pass. As I said that, like back in 2014, the Lord gave me a revelation about a friend of mine that she was going to have 2 children. And the Lord had me convey this message to her. And actually the previous year, the Lord had me tell another friend that she was going to give birth to a child. And I'll go back to 2013. When the Lord had me give this friend this revelation, 6 months later, the friend contacted me to let me know that she was pregnant and that she was far along in the pregnancy. And based on the time of her pregnancy, she was supposed to give birth, of course, 9 months later. The Lord had me write a poem dedicating it to my friend, her husband, and this coming child. I think this was like at month 8. Lo and behold, 2 months, I think, after that poem was either written or published, my friend gave birth to her son. And that son actually came, I think, a month early. Now, with the other friend in 2014, I think it was the end of 2014 or 2015, that friend sent me a Christmas card. And I actually kept it, and I was going to open it at the appropriate time. And when I opened it, it was her husband, and a little singlet. And I think there was also a photograph of a sonogram. So it was the pregnancy announcement. So she was pregnant with a child. And one morning I had a dream. And in the dream, I was at a pool by my house. And the pool was clear on all sides. And there was I think it was purple flower at the bottom. And I was diving towards the bottom of the pool, trying to retrieve the purple flower. And then I was facing a certain direction. And I was trying to push through the walls of the pool, but I could not. Within 20 minutes of having that dream, and the direction I was facing was actually the direction of the hospital my friend was in, giving birth. And that child, I think, came a little bit early. I won't get into certain details about it. So with the Lord, there are times we may think that if we had a tracking number, that it would make our lives easier because we could see things coming. But the Lord can make things happen before the time that we think that is the appropriate time. And that may include even though we may have waited a long time, that when the Lord finally is about to bring something to pass, it doesn't always come at the time that we expect. And also, it doesn't come when we are at the level of readiness that we think is necessary. Because sometimes we're thinking we have to have all these things together, things in a certain order. But it's not about our readiness, but God's readiness, and God saying when we're ready or not. So I put a lot of information, more than I thought I would. I actually thought this message was going to be maybe 1 or 2 minutes long, but have to go with the word of the Lord. So again, this morning, a package arrived, and even though I was tracking it, I was expecting it this afternoon, but it showed up early. And when I saw the email saying the package had been delivered, which was to my surprise, that's when the Lord let me know that we can't track him. So even if we had a tracking number, the Lord can still surprise us for his glory. And one thing about a person who's a good gift giver is the person is usually full of surprises. Sometimes we open a big box and then there's a small item in it, because it's about the element of surprise. So in all things, the Lord's will be done. If you're waiting on him, you may not have a tracking number where you can point to something happening by a certain date. Sometimes he will, sometimes he won't. Then there's also this. For some individuals, the reason why the Lord would not give you a tracking number is that if he were to give you a tracking number, you would idolize that gift so much, more than a giver, that you'd spend your time tracking the item, seeing where it is, and not just once or twice per day, but maybe every hour on the hour. And you spend more time tracking that item than forging or fostering a relationship with the Lord. Because also remember this, a part of God giving you a gift is that you are going to need him to steward it. I say again, a part of God giving you a gift is because you're going to need him to steward it. It is not something that he gives you and you can just run off on your own and you're good, that you can just cut the Lord off. You're going to need the Lord to steward that gift. And every good and perfect gift is from the Lord. I pray this message blesses you as much as it blesses me giving it to you. God bless you, and Jesus the Christ is Lord. Oh, by the way, I think I mentioned that the Lord had me tell my second friend about her having 2 children. And you may be wondering how I didn't say anything about the second. Well, after my friend gave birth to the first child, a little later on, she announced her second pregnancy. And she asked me if I knew the gender. The Lord had actually given me something to give to her. And it was actually an ad from Old Navy. And in the Old Navy ad was a girl who looked like the girl that she would have. And below the image of that girl was a boy. And that was the order of the children that my friend had. Now, even though I'd given her that order, and the Lord had shown me first in a vision with her with 2 children, the first being a girl, when she asked me about if I knew the gender of the second, what the Lord had me do was quote from Isaiah about, for unto us a child is given, for unto us a son. And I just ended it right there. And I sent her on a card. In fact, the card was a cover of a book the Lord had me publish. And I think I'll use that as a cover image for this message. So just quoting from Isaiah about a son. Now, that is a messianic prophecy pointing to Jesus. But that became the word of the Lord for her regarding the second child. And to date, she has an older daughter and a younger son, all in accordance with the word of the Lord, a part of God's faithfulness. So again, I pray this message blesses you, and Jesus the Christ is Lord.